The first knock came at midnight. Marcus Dent didn't move. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling of his mother's house on the edge of Harlan County, listening to the silence that followed. The knock had been low, patient, like whatever made it knew he was there. He told himself it was a branch, a neighbor, the house settling the way old houses do in the cold. Then it came again. There was a rule in that part of Kentucky, one his mother had told him, one Mrs. Calloway from down the road had told him, one that had been passed between the people of that hollow for longer than anyone could remember. If something knocks at your door after midnight, you count the knocks. You do not open the door until you know how many there are. And if the count reaches 11, you walk away. You leave the room. You do not open that door for any reason, any voice, any sound on the other side. Marcus Dent was 17 years old. He thought the rule was for children. He was wrong. The Dent family moved to Kettle Rock Road in late October, 2 weeks before his mother found work at the county hospital, and 3 weeks before his father stopped returning her calls altogether. The house was old, a 2-story wood frame with a tin roof that rang in the rain and floors that memorized every footstep. It sat at the end of a gravel road so long and unmarked that their moving truck had missed the turnoff twice. The neighbors came in the first week, not to welcome them. An older woman named Mrs. Calloway arrived with a jar of preserved tomatoes and a look on her face like she'd already decided this visit wasn't going to do any good. She handed the jar to Marcus's mother, Diane, and said the same thing every other neighbor had already said in different words. Don't open the door after midnight if something knocks. Don't count the knocks. Don't try to look through the window glass. Just don't answer it, and don't count. Diane thanked her and set the tomatoes on the counter and never mentioned it again. Marcus was 17. He'd grown up in Knoxville. He understood how isolated communities manufactured folklore, how darkness and distance and too many generations of the same families in the same hills could turn an animal, a draft, a trick of sound into something that needed a rule built around it. He wasn't afraid of old women with jars and warnings that didn't add up. He was, though, a little unsettled by how quiet the house got at night. Not quiet like a city apartment, with its low hum of traffic and air systems running somewhere in the walls. Quiet like something holding its breath. The woods behind the property were a solid black mass after sundown, and the nearest street light was half a mile back toward the main road. On clear nights, Marcus could see more stars than he'd known existed. On cloudy nights, there was nothing. No ambient glow, no shapes at the tree line, no reference points at all. Just the dark pressing in against every window like something curious about what was inside. He started having trouble sleeping. The first knocks came on a Wednesday in November, 3 weeks after they moved in. Marcus was lying on his back, awake and staring at the ceiling, when he heard them. 3 slow knocks at the front door, not frantic, not forceful, measured, like someone who knew he was in there and had nowhere else to be. He checked his phone. 1:47 a.m. He stayed still and listened. Nothing followed the knocks. No voice. No footsteps on the porch boards. No creak of the weight shifting. Just silence folding back in like water filling a hole. He didn't get up. He told himself it was a branch swollen with rain tapping the door frame. He almost believed it. The second time was the following Saturday. 6 knock, same tempo, same hour. He sat up in bed and strained to hear anything beyond them. A car engine, An animal, some mundane explanation. There was nothing. He sat there for over half an hour before he lay back down and finally fell asleep. Near dawn, he didn't tell his mother. He started searching instead. There wasn't much. Scattered threads on regional folklore forums, a few buried comment chains, one post from a user claiming to have grown up 2 counties over that read only, "They knock until you reach 11. The rule isn't about the door. The rule is about the counting. Don't ever get to 11. The post was 4 years old. The account had no other activity. Marcus told himself that didn't mean anything. The third time came on a Tuesday. He was already sitting at his desk in the dark when they started, headphones around his neck, waiting without letting himself admit he was waiting. The knocks began at 2:11 a.m. He started counting before he could stop himself. 1, 2, 3. Then a pause, just long enough for him to think it was done. 4, 5, 6. Another pause. 7, 8. Then a longer silence, longer than felt natural, long enough that he exhaled, long enough that his shoulders dropped half an inch and he started to think, okay, that's it. That's 8. 8 is fine. 9, 10. He went rigid. The silence after 10 was different from the others. It had weight to it. He sat completely still, jaw locked, watching the door of his room like it might move on its own. The quiet stretched and stretched, long enough that he started to think maybe 10 was as far as it went tonight, that the pattern had broken, that the number was 10 and 10 was nothing. 10 was just a sound in the dark. 11. Softer than all the others, almost careful. Marcus stood before his mind caught up to his body. Later, he would spend a long time trying to understand why he walked toward the front door instead of away from it. He thought maybe it was the silence that followed, the absolute sealed silence, the sense that whatever was out there had simply stopped moving, stopped breathing, gone completely still, the way nothing alive ever really does. He needed to see it. Couldn't sit 3 feet from a closed door, knowing something was standing on the other side and not knowing what it was. He went downstairs in the dark, crossed the entryway, put his hand on the knob. He opened the door. The porch was empty. The gravel drive ran grey and still under an overcast sky. The tree line sat 50 yards back, a black wall of bare November timber. Nothing stood where he had expected something to stand. The air was cold and smelled like mud and dead leaves and nothing else. He almost laughed. Then he heard his mother's bedroom door close at the top of the stairs behind him. He turned slowly. The staircase was dark and empty. He listened for the sounds his mother made when she was actually moving through the house. The particular creak of her mattress, the shuffle of her feet, and heard none of them. Her room was perfectly still, the wrong kind of still. He stood at the bottom of the stairs for a long time. He would tell people later that he didn't know what he saw when he finally pushed open her bedroom door, that whatever was in the far corner of the room had already moved there, into the place where the window light didn't reach, that the shape was close to right, roughly the right height, roughly the right proportions. But that something about the way it held itself was wrong in a way he couldn't name, like a familiar thing that had been taken apart and reassembled by something that had only ever seen a picture of it. He closed the door. The cold thing standing in that corner, the thing that wore the shape of his mother the way something dead wears a coat, did not follow him. It had already done what it came to do. Diane Dent was found the next morning locked in the cellar with no memory of how she'd gotten there. She had bruising on both wrists she couldn't explain. She said the last thing she remembered was turning off her lamp. Marcus has never told anyone what he saw in that corner. He will only say one thing about that night, if he says anything at all, that when he closed the door, whatever was inside did not knock back. It didn't need to. The Dent family left Kettle Rock Road before the month was out. 8 months later, someone new signed the lease. Mrs. Calloway was on their porch within the week. Jar of preserved tomatoes, same look on her face. She told them what she told everyone. They set the jar on the counter and thanked her. They didn't listen. They never do.